Welcome in, guys, to That's a Tap with CT and DJ, your hosts. We're here to break down and react to the huge pay-per-view, first of the year for the UFC 297. Lots to talk about, DJ. How you feeling?
Feeling great. Look, we've spoken a lot off air since the card aired. Man, pretty decent card. The main event was epic. So I've lost my voice because I was screaming so much for the main event. I wasn't at the arena, but I was watching from home. But man, look, decent card. Like I said, I mean, look, we've got the reactions to the card. Scrolling through our screen on the feed as well because we thought there was some good reactions there. And as we speak on the fights, you'll be able to see some of those reactions as we go on. But man, what did you think of the card? I know we get to grades. We'll do that at the end. But what were your thoughts now that we have witnessed UFC 297 all the way in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, headlined by Strickland versus Du Plessis for the middleweight championship? What are your thoughts?
Look, yeah, obviously, if you break down the card, there was some really awesome stuff there, and there was some underwhelming stuff,
Yeah, yeah,
widely considered a kind of a dull card in the lead up to the main event. I
yeah,
got to agree with the consensus on this one, DJ.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, we'll talk about it as we get through the fights, but the biggest thing is every time you get a new champion, for me, it elevates the card a bit more. Whether you like that fighter, you don't. I think because this just opens up a world of possibilities now in terms of
yeah,
us, and are able to talk about what's next in the middleweight
yeah,
division. Right, Dricus Du Plessis. You see the reactions. Uh, the ambassador for South Africa, huge reactions. He's a hero now back in his country. I can only imagine, DJ. Imagine having a whole country behind you.
yeah.
How do you sort of feel about an initial reaction as to him now taking the belt from Strickland?
Yeah, look, I mean, in our predictions, I had, Sean Strickland for the predictions, but we did mention it was going to be a close fight. It will be, a toss up. And it ended up being one of those, right? Because when you look at the fight, when you look at the decision at the end of it, it ended up being a split decision. The community is divided into two as to who won. I personally believe the right person won. I think Dricus Du Plessis, pressed the action. He sort of took the fight to different places, landed takedowns. They both were pressuring each other, so there was not really. I mean, we saw Dricus pressuring Strickland, and then alternatively, we see Strickland pressuring Dricus as well. We were talking about how the fight ended. Obviously, it ended on a strong note for Sean Strickland, no doubt. Obviously, him sort of walking him down and throwing punches, but Dricus was returning fire as opposed to what we saw in Sydney in that last few minutes when the fight was about to end. We did see Dricus returning fire as well. I mean, look, he copped a lot of damage when you look at um, the, the damage that Dricus carried was more visible as opposed to obviously Sean had that cut. He said it was a headbutt. I don't think we've seen clear footage of it being a headbutt. Dricus also wasn't sure, but like either way, look, man, like it was a close fight. Both guys did extremely well. I think safe to say they carried the card. The main event carried the card. The pre-fight antiques, the pre-fight back and forth, everything sort of lived up. The fight lived up to it. Um, it was non-stop action. We've spoken about this, and we were on the edge of our seat. And look, at the end of the fight, it was really, really. While I had Dricus winning. I wasn't sure which way the decision was. It was one of those fights. It wasn't where, oh yeah, no, it's a clear Dricus win. It was okay. Well, it's so tight. It could go the other way. Look, Sean Strickland gave a really good account of himself as well. And look, if the decision had gone Sean Strickland's way, I don't think I would have. I don't think anyone would have been mad either. Dana White actually came out and said that he thought Sean Strickland won. Um, um, in terms of your point about the opening up a whole new avenue, I mean, let's talk about the movement now that we're seeing in this middleweight division. The middleweight division used to be sort of, and at one point dominated by the likes of Anderson Silva, Chris Weidman, Luke Rockhold, Michael Bisping, and then there was relatively long stints. We had Robert Whittaker, obviously. His title reign was plagued with injuries, but we did obviously. Robert Whittaker was a champ, and then Israel Adesanya took over, and he, for the longest time, remained the middleweight champion. Sort of spoke volumes of his talent and his skill. What we're seeing now is the amount of movement since I feel like the injection of Alex Pereira, not just to the UFC but to that middleweight division, just breathed life into that division. In terms of sort of the talent getting mixed up, and he brought a whole new game to it, and we started seeing this title movement. The Alex captured it, and then Israel Adesanya was able to capture it back again. Then Sean Strickland took it, and now it's with Dricus. And so it just also speaks to the talent now that we are seeing in that division. The skill and the talents like rising to the top. In terms of, I think Dana was quick to mention, and this is our opportunity to revitalize UFC Africa, with now Dricus, an African-born champion, residing in Africa. Obviously, we've had 3 African-born champions prior to this: Israel Adesanya, Francis Ngannou, and Kamaru Usman from the UFC. But this is the first time there is this whole back and forth between him and Israel Adesanya is based on that, I still live in Africa, all these kind of things. He did call out Israel Adesanya. I did like that fight, right? I don't know, like, I'm in 2 minds as to when that'll happen. Because if Dana's talking about taking Dricus to Africa, they'd want to have that title intact. I mean, him and Israel Adesanya in Africa would be huge. But in terms of logistics, in terms of planning and timeline, I don't think it's like anywhere around the corner, which means, we're looking at a prolonged delay in seeing them back in the octagon, which I don't think will happen. I don't think that's good for either person. We might see this as a title fight. Sorry, the main event of UFC 300, because Dricus openly said, "Look, I'm ready for 300." But then you got the question of where does Hamzat fit into all of this, because he was promised a title shot if he were to beat Kamaru Usman back in October, which he did. And he's obviously chimed in and called out Dricus as well. Another good fighter who's done his dues, who's got the wins, also holds a win over Sean Strickland, is Jared Cannonier. Where does he fit in, right? We've got Whittaker and Costa fighting shortly next month, so that's another sort of, I wouldn't say title eliminator, because I think maybe one more fight after that. So man, like, look, in terms of contenders, it's now we've got this middleweight division teeming and swarming with contenders. In terms of who gets that shot, man, I don't envy the UFC in terms of making that decision. Obviously, a big money fight would be Adesanya versus Du Plessis, given the bad blood, given the back and forth they've had. Given now even Du Plessis called him out. Last time we saw the in-cage interaction between those two as well. So, like, obviously there's a lot of theatrics there. And we know when he comes back as a contender or a title challenger, these performances, surpass expectations. And, we can expect a very focused Israel Adesanya to come back with a point to prove as well. But again, the Hamzat fight is big too. So, I mean, because of the fan following that Hamzat has and all of those. So I don't know, like it's really a toss in the air. So what are your thoughts? What do you think? Who do you think should fight for the title next?
Yeah, you raised a great point about the Africa, and I think that's the goal. And a great point about how soon can it happen. 300 is obviously way too soon to get that done. I think obviously well that's not in Africa anyway, but
Yeah.
those two maybe they could make Africa happen by May, July maybe. But to that point, I would say Izzy. Dricus said in his press conference, one of the reasons he called him out was not necessarily because there's bad blood. It's just wanting to settle the score and recognizing that that's what the fans want. I kind of agree. As much as I'm excited about a Hamzat opportunity, other guys coming up, Pereira, I think this is the one we really wanted. Before Strickland upset Izzy, we thought we were on a collision course for Dricus and Izzy.
Yeah,
Now it's a perfect storyline because it's come full circle that
yeah,
Dricus has Izzy's belt or Izzy's
yeah,
former belt, and I
yeah,
think Dricus is the in-form guy. Like I think going back
yeah,
to the fight, DJ, I thought I was a little worried for him after the first round. I thought Strickland had another excellent start. The
yeah.
jab was just absolutely
Oh,
outstanding. Probably the
spot on,
best
man.
jab in the industry
Probably
in terms of
100%
yeah.
accuracy and the damage, and man, what a jab. Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree.
Yeah, and then Dricus's cardio. The impressive thing was, there was talk about, the nose op. Could he go 5 rounds? He made a mockery of the crowd and the narrative that he couldn't go 5 rounds. So
Yeah.
my question to you, DJ, is there anything in this win that kind of was more impressive than the other thing, or anything that surprised you?
No, like, I mean, look, you make some great points there, CD. One is, you got to not just talk about his jab, but sort of his ability to stick Sean Strickland. That is, as a stunning jab, a very effective jab, accurate. Not just that, just being able to stick to the fundamentals. And if you want to watch someone how they stick to the fundamentals and make it effective, you sort of should watch guys like Sean Strickland who do that really well. Sort of his fit movement. It's a very boxing heavy style. And like I said, it was unfortunate. Sort of, it was a close fight. And look, we've seen how popular Sean Strickland has become as well in terms of star power. Being the genuine player, like he's quite genuine. I mean, he does say a lot of things, rubs a lot of people in different ways, but ultimately, though, he's genuine. He speaks his mind. I mean, you obviously can't put a filter on him, and I think a lot of people resonate to that. We spoke about that in our preview. Um, so yeah, look, you're right. Started strong, but the question always was, how good is Dricus's cardio? Because we've seen it in the past where he does fade away. We saw that with in the Till fight, in the Brunson fight. While he got the wins, by the time he got there, he was visibly tired, labored breathing, etc. Now in the Whitaker fight, we saw him perform extremely well, right? But it just didn't go long enough for us to determine whether that the nose surgery played a factor. Yesterday or Sunday, which is yesterday, sorry, that question got answered. Right, he did go 5 rounds against another cardio machine. He matched him for pace. I didn't see Dricus slow down. His intensity was up there from minute 1 to minute 25. And look, man, like I'm thinking the more you look at this fight, it makes me feel what we saw in the Whitaker fight. Not to say, I mean, obviously, I feel Whitaker did have an off night, but it also, you can't now, diminish who Drickers is and his skills. He is pretty good. He is who he says he is, and he's come in and achieved what he said he is going to achieve. And then he also he's undefeated. Let's not forget that he's undefeated in the UFC. So obviously, has losses outside of the UFC, but he's quite talented, quite skilled, and is a great athlete. Now we have a new champion from a new continent, which opens up more markets for the UFC as well. So I think I would be surprised not to see the UFC back him as well in terms of marketing. And man, like I do want to give Dricus his dues. Like he's a deserved champion. He didn't take the easy road. He did beat contenders. I think everyone said this, including fighters. I've said this, that Dricus did not have to take Whitaker. This fight was there for him. The fight with Israel Adesanya was already there. Once that back and forth started, and Israel Adesanya at that time had cleared everyone out, closed that chapter. I know there's an exclamation mark there, but closed the chapter with Alex Pereira, and he was looking for who the next contender is because he's pretty much lapped the division, and he was kind of looking at the possibility of Whitaker again. Whereas that's when Dricus was coming up, and that back and forth happened. So he had that fight secured, but he said, I'll earn this shot. Let me fight another. You guys keep doubting me. Let me fight Whitaker too. And look, no one wants to fight Whitaker because the pattern was, you fight Whitaker, you just go back down the ranking because they were the two best guys, Israel Adesanya and Robert Whitaker. And now we're seeing like a whole, plethora of fighters putting their hand up, and sort of speaks volumes of Dricus's skill set.
Yeah, I think both fighters put on a great show, and I'll lead into our grades for the card as we continue to
Yeah,
talk about it and we move down the order. But I
Yeah,
think,
yeah,
yeah, this main event, DJ, made it a 7.5 because, yeah, you said the excitement of the announcement. You didn't know which way it was going to go. I thought it
yeah,
was this guy wins the first round, this is win the second, back and forth. It was
yeah,
exciting.
yeah,
There was damage.
yeah,
Everything that you want to see from a UFC main event. I think it delivered. From what do you
yeah.
think?
Absolutely. And I want to say this too. Like, I mean, with in regards to Dricus, it may not be it's not. It may not be like he may not have the most smoothest style in terms of fighting and easy on your eyes in terms of fighting skills. But man, the one thing you can't deny is his resilience and his self belief. He believes that he can beat anyone. He's not afraid to face anyone. Even with Sean Strickland, Robert Whitaker. He's open to opportunities with Alex Pereira, who's called him out since. He's calling out Israel Adesanya, who's one of the best middleweights of all time. He's ready to challenge himself, and that's sort of what feeds into this success that he's seeing at the moment. And now back to sort of the card grading. Man, you're right. Look, I gave it a 7 as well. Not even a 7.5. I gave it a 7 because take the main event out. Like apart from that, it was a pretty normal card in terms of pay per view. It's not so much as I think the fights were there that were expected to deliver. It's just, man, it is a fight. Like it's two humans locked in a cage. Know like how things play out, and nothing, not to take anything away from the fighters, but just from an entertainment sort of perspective, the rest of the card was a little bit underwhelming. Look, let me put it this way, right? Like the whole card, I'll give it a 7. If this card UFC two, which never happens, but UFC 297, it was only the main event, I would actually give it an 8 or a 9 purely because of how much those guys put into that fight and how the fight delivered. So yeah, that's my grade. So overall 7 for that card, but the main event gets a 9 out of 10. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, completely. I agree.
yeah,
Main event delivered. Yeah, the rest not so much.
yeah,
We'll talk about the Canadians' success, lack of success on the
yeah,
card, but yeah, fight of the night was the main event. And performance of the night. Yeah, Robertson and Jasmine.
yeah,
For their two outstanding performances, they get
yeah,
the two big bonuses. But
yeah.
before we move to the co-main, DJ, I've got to ask you, you know, um, what's next? Like what do you hope to see? As we talked about, Izzy and Dricus. If those two fight next, what's next for then Hamzat? Like, what do you think?
Man, I've got two scenarios, right? The one is, this is like my sort of, think of it as my wish list, is that I'd like to see the rematch, Drickers and Strickland. It was a close fight. And let's not forget, Strickland is coming. The last person he beat was the best middleweight on planet Earth, right? And he shut him down across 5 rounds. And then now he's had obviously a tough close fight against a game opponent. Lost his belt, but I'd like to see that rematch. I know Dana shut it down straight away. He said we're not looking at a rematch immediately, but I'd like to see that. And while that's happening, I'd like for Hamzat and Israel Adesanya to fight. And the winner of that gets to face, because they're the two that are touted to fight for the title, right? Like, so I'd just like to see that, to see both of them fight, and the winner then fights the winner of um, DDP versus Strickland. However, that's definitely not happening. We know if Dana White said something's not happening, then it definitely is not. The other scenario, and unfortunately, what throws the spanners in the work, and this is just more from a fan point of view, because I am a massive fan of Robert Whitaker. I would have loved to see Sean Strickland versus Robert Whitaker. Right? If Robert Whitaker is able to get a win over Sean Strickland, it puts him right back in that title picture, right? Even if it's DDP for the title, it puts a good storyline, and he's beaten him once, and he asks out for revenge. Or you know, if it's Israel Adesanya, obviously it's a bit of a harder sell because it becomes that third fight. Or if it's Hamzat, this is me based on whoever fights for the title. It's an all fresh new matchup. And having said that, look, I think they are going to go with DDP versus Israel Adesanya. The reason I'm saying that is because they they lost that opportunity first. Remember, like it was meant to be That was the plan. That was the big money fight, and then no one expected Adesanya to lose, and he did. And the UFC felt they fumbled the bag. Now they've got another opportunity to make that for the title. The only thing I guess is, and I think Robert Whittaker made this point, since after I think twice Adesanya's lost the title, but he gets to come back straight into another title shot. The Alex Pereira was understandable because there was that bad blood. But now, like again, like I think fighting a contender and then coming in sort of, you know, puts that mind thought process to rest, I guess. What about you, though? Do you in agreement with that, or do you have a different scenario in mind?
No, I completely agree with what you're saying. I think Strickland and Dricus put on a good enough show that I would love to see that rematch. But I'm not heavily invested in an immediate rematch. I think we will get. Well,
Yeah,
Strickland deserves to then fight the winner of Izzy and Dricus. So I think Strickland's firmly in the picture. I don't
yeah,
necessarily want to see an immediate rematch, but I think you will get the
yeah,
shot after the next one.
yeah,
Maybe Izzy needs to come back and fight one more time against Hamzat
yeah.
and not fight a
Mm,
title fight.
mm,
Um, but the good thing, DJ, that I like is that they waited. Izzy's going
yeah,
to be, in the best of health, and I hope they wait
yeah,
a little bit so that Dricus, he is
yeah,
obviously, you see, banged up. He
yeah,
said he'd
yeah.
love
Just
to
heal
make
up a bit.
300, but yeah, would love to
Yeah.
see him rest a bit.
Yeah, because you want the best version, right? When you have grudge fights like that, you want the best version of both guys because you want that score to be settled. Um, Man, again, but the one thing, and sort of this is very reminiscent of is where he is at the moment, is we entirely forgot about Jared Cannonier. Maybe Strickland can fight Jared Cannonier because that's a loss he has. He can try and get that back. Maybe that's a fight that's in there. And what happens if Paulo Costa wins? I mean, obviously, being a massive Robert Whittaker fan, I don't want to entertain that idea. But yeah, what if Paulo Costa wins? Then it brings up another because
Well,
while he's fought for the title, he hasn't. It was a while ago.
that that fight might not even be confirmed, according to Paulo Costa says he hasn't signed anything yet, but that's that's a conversation for the next episode. Um,
Man,
but
what?
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Look,
hey,
awesome stuff for the middleweight division.
can I ask this though? Do you reckon if Paulo Costa pulls out again, right? Do you reckon who do you think they'll get? Obviously, they'll get a replacement, or they probably have a replacement already in the background. Who do you think it'll be? Do you think it'll be Sean Strickland, Khamzat Chimaev, or Jared Cannonier?
For Whitaker.
Yeah, Whitaker's still a big name, man. Like a win over Whitaker holds a lot of value.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Strickland. If
Yeah,
maybe, yeah, look, a Strickland Whitaker would be a huge. That'd be bigger than the Costa one, in my opinion. Um,
yeah.
but then Cannonier
Especially
is
now.
obviously, yeah, waiting around.
Yeah, man. If I'm Kananaya, I wouldn't be a backup fighter, right? He came to Sydney, he was the backup fighter, he cut weight and everything, but he got nothing for it. He probably got compensated, but outside of that, he didn't get like a slot for a title shot or a number one contender shot. Nothing. Like he's still left in the dark. So yeah.
Here's an idea. We've obviously got Marvin Vittori, who's still around. Maybe Strickland and Vittori can wait
So
a little bit.
Vittori's fighting Brendan Allen in March, I believe. That's an exciting fight because man, Brandon Allen has had a massive resurgence since I think losing to Strickland. He's come back really strong. He's been finishing fights. I'm actually excited to see that Vittori Allen fight, and then like yeah, we can see where that goes from there. But I mean, the UFC will find a way. They'll figure it out. But man, what that means is like good news for us because there's endless opportunities. And hey, mark my words, if Izzy were to win the title back from DDP, I think he will definitely want to fight Sean Strickland. So it's best case scenario if Izzy wins, because we know Israel Adesanya likes to get his wins back. He likes to settle those scores, so he's gonna want that win back. Especially and look, we felt it too. Like he said he had an off night, so we'd like to see that how that goes the second time around. So I think yeah,
Yeah, I'm real high on Izzy's second phase of, or the next phase of his career, because I
Yeah,
think I don't think it's anything to do with him, less of a fighter or
yeah,
aging. I think it's just he was exhausted. He had so
yeah,
many
yeah.
he had so
And the
many
strength of schedule.
backups. He had so much action.
Yeah,
He was so active, and I think fighters
yeah.
just needed a year and a half off to get the best.
Yeah, but like the strength of schedule for Israel Adesanya, we saw that. He's just he was fighting every 3 months almost. So yeah, and it's not when you're the champ and you're that active. Just remember, you're fighting the best of the best. You're only fighting like the best contenders. So yeah, man, look, I'm excited as much as you are to see him come back. I'm excited to see how Robert Whittaker goes in his next fight. Either way, like even if it's a Costa fight, I'm excited for that too because it is. Is it look? If the fight goes in, it's a pretty explosive fight. Or whoever he ends up fighting. So yeah,
Yep, definitely. Yeah, we'll wait to see for 300 announcement. Dana did leave a nice clue, DJ, that he will be announcing it on after
yeah,
the matchmaking meeting on Tuesday.
yeah. So I think we'll be able to see the main event very soon. Yeah, I'm excited, man. I'm excited. There's an aura of mystery around this UFC 300 card, so I'm excited. Yeah,
Yep, definitely. And just touching on the rest of the card. So as we said, the highlight was the main event. Of course, it was a underwhelming rest of the card. There was some action, excitement with the Magne Malott,
yeah,
which was
yep,
the third on the main on the
yep.
main card. But the co-main, Pennington gets the win over Silva.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a story and emotional, sort of scenes that we have
Yep,
up on screen. Her
yep,
finally putting on that champion's,
yep,
jersey that she's
yep,
wanted to put on. This was a bit of a snooze fest
yep,
for the casual fan. But what's
yep.
your read on this one?
Oh man, look. In terms of the fight itself, there was no controversy. It's very clear who won. Yeah, look, man, not the most entertaining fight. Especially, this is a division we've seen the likes of Amanda Nunes dominate, right? Ronda Rousey dominate at one point. So we're used to seeing exciting fights, and unfortunately, this wasn't one of that. Having said that, just from a story perspective, obviously a really good feel good story. A veteran of the UFC, Raquel Pennington, who's been with the company for a very long time, has had a shot previously against Amanda Nunes. It was a tough, tough matchup. We've spoken about it where she obviously, almost wanted to quit on the stool. And then we then had, her come make her way back to this title. Look, I said this in the preview, and I'll say it again. I think the real title fight for the Waken title should have been Juliana Pena and Raquel Pennington. But not to discredit Myra because she did beat Holly Holmes prior to this. So that's a former champion she's got under her belt. But yeah, man, look, but I think we'll get that fight next. Juliana Pena and Raquel Pennington. Seems to be some bad blood too, so that could cause some excitement. And again, say what you may about Juliana Pena, she does bring the excitement when fighting. She comes to fight, she comes to finish a fight. So looking forward to that. Man, the Neil Magny one, yeah, you're right. Like I thought it was. Oh, look, the last part of it was quite exciting. I mean, there was one-sided. The first two rounds was one-sided. Mike Malott was winning that fight without a doubt. But that's why like a veteran like Neil Magny, you can never count them out. Came in at the right time, right? Like in to say it in your terminology, CT. He got the finish right at the buzzer and scored the point and got the win. Yeah, good. You can't help but feel good for Neil Magny, especially after everything he had to go through after the last fight. Um, Unfortunately, not so great for Mallet because he was touted to be this next big star from Canada. Didn't happen in front of his own crowd. I mean, look, man, the Canadian athletes had a pretty horrible day yesterday. Sorry, 7 out of the 9 lost. All male Canadian athletes lost, and obviously we had Julian Robertson and Jasmine. Can't say her last name, so I'm not going to try and attempt and butcher it. Win, man. Jasmine's fight. I'll tell you what. One of the performances that impressed me a lot was Jasmine's performance against Kuchera. It was just there was a round where it was 224 to 4 strikes, and it's a clean show of domination. Really, really excited to see her again. She's definitely on my radar now in terms of uh, sort of her skill set and sort of what she brings to the fight. I'm excited to see who she fights next. There was a controversy in the other fan-friendly fight, which was the Charles Jourdain and Woodson fight. When the announcement or the winner was announced, it was so noisy in the arena. Everyone assumed Jourdain won. The ref also happened to raise Jourdain's hand, and then it was clarified. It was a little bit of an anticlimactic finish through the Canadian fighter Jourdain. But yeah, man, look, it's obviously we have Action Man. He's on screen. He had a win as well. It was a decent fight. They gave it the all. Action Man gave it his all too. But yeah, uh, pretty top to bottom, decent card. Great main event. And yeah, and some solid performances in between there.
Yeah, just on, I wanted to just talk a little bit about the Magny Malott fight, and obviously the huge Canadian media contingent, was
Yeah,
asking Dana a lot. That was the theme of the post-event press conference
yeah,
about his chances to be, to still be a star in the
yeah.
organization. Dana believes so. He just needs to get back on the saddle. Get some wins up. He was dominating the fight. He was winning. So that's very
No doubt.
noteworthy. But yeah,
Yeah,
he also paid credit to Neil Magny, the veteran, who's a guy who people just think is just a name that they can run through and use as a stepping stone. But
yeah.
Neil Magny is a very very solid fighter. A guy who's been around and definitely a guy who needs his respect as well. So
Yeah.
look, I think it was a solid fight for that one. I think Malott is got a bright future in the organization. So I think whilst it was a downer night for the Canadian locals, I still think he's got a future ahead of him.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. They're young as well, and you're just one or two good fights away from getting that back. Just think of Mallet, the last two fights. The crowd were lapping him up because the finishing fights. He was doing so in an entertaining manner. Unfortunately, it's one of those fights that didn't go your way, and you'd rather have these early in your career and get it out of the way, and then um, yeah, I think he'll be back. Like I said, it wasn't like a terrible performance. He was actually winning the fight until he wasn't. And Neil Magny proved why he's a crafty veteran. And man, I see you got some UFC MMA royalty up on the screen, and we definitely have to talk about that. The great Frankie Edgar, Frankie the Answer Edgar, a legend, fought across three divisions, champion of the lightweight division at one point, challenged for the title in the featherweight division, performed really well even in the bantamweight division as well. So, man, he's a legend who's done it all. He's the first inductee in 2024 to be inducted to the Hall of Fame. Congratulations to him. Well deserved. I mean, there are a few people who we can say, look, if anyone deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, this person is, and you can definitely agree that Frankie Edgar is one of those fighters who's not just was an awesome fighter and an awesome human being inside and outside the cage, but also the contribution that they've given towards the sport and to build this sport. Because when they started, this sport was illegal in majority of the states in the United States. It was an unknown concept for many people living outside of America. To being there from that get go and building the sport, and now being able to leave the sport where it is now, and yeah, just be inducted to the Hall of Fame. That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, you summed it up nicely, man. I love the thought and the credential of awarding him, the first of 2024.
Yeah,
Well deserved. Definitely a guy who needs his props, like you said, helped develop the sport. It was just an absolute fan favorite and a warrior. So yeah, in terms of the overall car, we can cast our eye now on what's coming next, and things heat up.
yeah,
February, our boy Alex the Great
man.
Volkanovski and Ilya Tapuria. Give us a few words on what you're looking forward to for this next month.
Man, look, I'm pretty confident. Like we're gonna spend a lot of time talking about this card, in the week of the fight. But man, looking at the UFC 298 card, this is some really good fight nights leading up to it as well. But man, UFC 298 is because it's going under the radar purely because of how the limelight's on UFC 299, given how stacked it is, and also UFC 300. There's all, like I said, the aura of mystery around it, and everyone wanting to know what this main event is going to be. So I feel like UFC 298 is definitely flying under the radar. Man, there's some solid fights here. Not just solid fights, but fights with a lot of implications in their respective divisions. Number one, the main event, super awesome main event. Our boy Alex Volkanovski is taking on, the surging Ilya Topuria. Fireworks guaranteed. Again, Ilya Topuria, you can sort of compare him to Dricus Du Plessis, who's got an immense amount of self belief, but he also has the skill set to match that, an extremely well rounded fighter. But so is Alex Volkanovski, one of the pound for pound best. Then we got the core main event, our very own, Robert Whitaker, one of my favorite fighters, is taking on Paulo Costa. Hopefully, this fight stays intact. But we spoke about it. If it doesn't, I think there's a few options. The UFC will probably be planning behind the scenes. I think Paulo Costa's pulling everyone's leg. I think he's signed the contract. I think he will turn up to fight. Man, look, to be honest, whether you like Paulo Costa or not, him being in the division, being in the organization is actually fun. I think he's a fun fighter, especially outside the octagon. Inside the octagon, too, he brings it. Then we got the Jeff Neal, Ian Gary bad blood fight, right? So all eyes on Ian Gary, how he's going to respond to what's going on around him, and sort of coming back, and fighting Jeff Neal, who he's rubbed the wrong way with that mugshot T-shirt that he did. Man, and this fight, like, I don't know if a lot of people understand there's this fight happening, is Merab Dvalishvili is fighting Henry Cejudo, Triple C, in that same card, for probably a number one contender fight. Man, that's a massive fight. Then you got the middleweight fight, Anthony Hernandez in the main event with Ikram Aliskerov. Obviously, as you know, Ikram Aliskerov is one of those people who used to fight with Hamzat outside of the UFC, and he's come in and he's been steamrolling his opponents. Right? I actually was expecting his next fight to be more higher up the ranking, but I think they're doing the right thing. They're taking their time with him. They're sort of getting the right fight. So man, I'm excited. UFC 298 cannot come sooner. Look, by the time we get to the core main and the main event, my heart would be beating outside of my chest. But I'm super excited.
Yep, you said it. As we wrap this one up, this leads into probably is what going to be the next three pay-per-views. Obviously, is going to set records. Obviously, we're
Epic.
approaching UFC 300, which is on the screen. We've got more
Yeah.
announcements coming. Stay tuned for another episode later in the week as we'll react
Yep.
to the announcements Dana makes for the main
Yep.
event for 300.
Yep.
But
Can't
before
wait.
we wrap these things up, I just want to get a prediction from you. What do you
Yep.
think it's going to be?
The UFC 300 main event. I'm going to say Israel Adesanya versus Dricus Du Plessis for the middleweight championship.
Ooh, you think they can back that up that
Okay,
quick?
can I do two? Can I do two? Can I do two? I'm going to go with either that or John Jones is not going to be ready for 300. So I'm going to say Alex Pereira versus either Ankalaev or Jamal Hill for the light heavyweight title.
Okay, nice.
What
I'm
about
gonna
you?
yeah. I think the low hanging fruit one is the Izzy Dricus. Um,
Yeah.
but I started to think this the other day. Dana also confirmed that the Conor McGregor, the New Year's Eve announcement is not true.
It's not true.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, he said once there's something announced, we'll announce it. And then he dropped, the hint that he's going to announce something. So I think it could be a shock. And I think, how could the UFC do 300 without its biggest star? So maybe we get a surprise that they've been trying to keep under wraps. Am
Yeah,
I am
could
I
be.
am I way off?
Man, I don't know. Like, I just feel like the way Dana spoke, I felt like Conor McGregor's not coming back anytime soon. Like the way he said it's like, I mean, look, he will fight this year, but we don't know who, when, or. But you're right, it could be a ploy just to throw us fans off the scent, and then hit us with the surprise announcement. But The problem always is going to be because this card, especially UFC 300, is going to be so stacked with these championship fights. You cannot put Conor McGregor down the card, right? Conor McGregor's one of those rare fighters who will be featured as the main event, right? It doesn't make sense to put all these champions and you know, and also another thing to remember is that all champions in a fight card get pay per view points, right? So say you have four title fights in there. We got Gaethje, we got Zhang Wei Li. Was there another one announced? No, not yet. So let's just say even two or three. There's a few champions that you have to pay off with pay per views, right? Which means if McGregor is there, the viewership obviously increases a lot more, which means the percentage that they have to pay increases as well. So I don't know strategically the UFC will do that. Again, man, you never know. It could be UFC 300. They're like, you know what? F that. Let's go all guns blazing. Yeah, but it'll definitely become a problem. And how do you put the champions below Conor McGregor? How can you put a championship fight under a non-championship fight? So I don't know. Like I feel like while Dana said no to the announcement date of Conor McGregor, I do feel they'll aim International Fight Week. It's a popular period that Conor McGregor has always fought in, and Vegas seems to be a good location for him to come back. So let's see, let's see. But hey, if that is the main event of 300, Conor McGregor was whoever, man, sign me up. I'm down. Not complaining here. That's it. I'm just just trying to understand how it'll work out.
No, yeah, that's why you're the wise one. You definitely talked me. You made more sense than me in terms of, yeah, maybe I was thinking more far conspiracy.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think he'll try to fight before or International Fight Week, so then he can maybe fight one more time, which
yeah,
Madison Square Garden. I think Connor's always, if they do try to get a second one in for
mhm,
Connor in the year, it has to
yeah.
be MSG or maybe Abu Dhabi.
Yep. I mean, look, Abu Dhabi is asking for, or Saudi Arabia is asking for Conor McGregor to fight there. They're asking the UFC. But yeah, man, look, and Madison Square Garden has a massive Irish fan following, right? So that's a formula for success in terms of money. So yeah, we just got to
Yeah.
wait and see.
Wait and see, like you said. But that's a tap is going to bring you all the announcements, the news, more conversations between DJ and I. And once again, thanks for joining us on this episode reaction to the first pay per view of the year. Many more to come. We graded it a 7.5 in total, but the main event reached the heights of 8.5, and the middleweight division's buzzing. And we'll
Yeah.
see you on the next one, everyone. Peace.
Peace.